Okay, so Johnny, welcome to this is our first episode of season 2 of the Open
Woohoo!
Up Not Man Up podcast. Absolute pleasure to have you here, and I was on your podcast a few weeks ago, so very grateful for you coming on ours.
Brilliant.
Because of what you do, and I'd like to dive into a bit more of the story as to why. With the non-alcoholic world and the app and the growth of that. So I think there's a lot of things there which we can relate to with our community and yours. So looking forward to diving into that. But we always start in Talk Club with a check-in of how are you out of 10. So I'd love to just hear how your day's been, brief summary out of 10. How are
Yeah,
you feeling, man? Like just so we can have as honest and open conversation as possible today.
absolutely. So this week has been a challenging week actually. But yeah, today is probably a 7.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd say a 7. We've had lots of technical stuff going on this week, and we've got a new release coming out. So it's all dealing with that level. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Good, man. Thanks for checking in. I think for me, I'm going to check in too. I'm probably an 8 right now. Really pleased to be here. I've been a little
Mm.
bit Zoomified out this week. A lot of Zoom Teams calls, um, but this one, super passionate about. So I'm looking forward to diving in. So talking about making a start. So I've been listening to, and it's come onto my radar again. Um, a chap, an author called Simon Sinek, and
Mm.
I don't know if you've come across him,
I
but
have, yeah.
yeah, he always starts with why. So we usually have conversations about how we do it, what we do, um, words taken straight from your website. I know what you do, but I
Mm.
bet without you create a place where finding, discovering low and non-alcoholic beers and wines and spirits is made easy. And
Hmm.
I believe your How is an app, or the first app to discover low and non-alcoholic drinks. So I
Yeah.
see that as your what and how, but I'd love
Mm.
to know why. What started you on this
Yes.
journey, and why do you
Mm.
do what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, first of all, obviously, thank you for having me on. And yeah, so the reason why I started it was very much through a personal experience I had and the need that I felt that we needed to solve. So, I've worked in sort of hospitality technology for the last about 7-8 years. Worked with a lot of the sort of high street, chains that are out there, and hospitality naturally is very. There's drinks all the time. It is a very sociable industry, and I was back last year, uh, sort of January last year, really suffering from anxiety, and we can talk a bit more about that a bit later. But I basically got to the point where I went, why do I drink? And I drink because I like the flavors, and what is out there that doesn't have alcohol. And actually, there's just this array of fantastic non-alcoholic beers, as you know, and wines, ciders, spirits. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to make it really easy for people to first of all, find these drinks and discover them, um, and find out where I can buy them. So whether that's online at the moment, but also, back into my hospitality mind is, I want to go out to the pub and I'm not drinking tonight, and where can I easily find drinks? And obviously people aren't drinking for many reasons, whether that's pregnancy, religious reasons, like myself, decided to give up, could be on medication, could be training for a marathon. There's many reasons why people are driving, and I wanted to make it really easy and people feel comfortable they can find a really, really good drink. So that was the why, and I really wanted to create like a community of people, so they could put in reviews, so make it unbiased reviews. We'll start to sort of build out connecting with people. We're making it a very content driven platform, so
Yeah.
find out and read about what's a beer of the week from an independent beer reviewer, and what's happening in maybe in the spirit world or wine world for no and low. So that was the why, and it was really bringing it onto one platform. We live off life on a phone, on apps, and for me, I just felt having it on an app was the right way to do it.
Brilliant. So I picked up on, you said that you had some battles with anxiety. What was that experience like for you? And was there a build up to a point where you decided that you wanted to make a lifestyle change and drop out the alcohol to help you on that journey?
Yeah. So I think I've always put pressure on myself in terms of wanting to succeed, whatever that is, whether it's in sport or whether it's in, a job promotion or anything like that. And, I've always put that pressure on myself. And I left college at 17. I straight away went to work for Metrobank. At 17, it was sort of offered this job, young, working all hours, and that was how many years ago now? Probably 8 years ago, 8, 9 years ago, and I sort of then became very unhappy, and I was in a job that I fell into, and I ended up just quitting the job. My anxiety just got really bad. I think you'll like, there's no description or words for anxiety. Like, everyone will have it in some form, and it's completely irrational, and you panic about the simplest things. I remember going to work when I was young and was like, did I leave something on the train? And you just spiral and you just worry about things. So I quit my job then, and was just like, right, I need to take a step back. I got to the stage where that sort of fear of being, leaving something on the train, like, I actually got to the stage of having to get my dad to drive me to work. It was that bad. I just was getting through the day. And so I had that, and I got, I overcame that, and I got into then another job and really enjoyed it. And, then really anxiety is always there, isn't it? It's just peaks at different levels. And I then, I was in a new job, new relationship. And I think for me, it just, things became just too much. And this is sort of December 2019. I was just finding everything would make me anxious. And again, you can't put a reason for it. And that's what's really important is, it's sometimes the most ridiculous thing, but actually it can put a real barrier. And I started to feel that I was turning things down, so not wanting to go out with friends and everything, because you naturally fear that of it showing, and people, it's very hard when people go, how are you, as it's typically, yeah, fine, and bang, gone, and you carry on with your day often. And and I remember going to sort of London, 4 or 5 meetings a day, almost like that anxiety sweats of going to London, getting on the train, and busyness, and I then got to the point where it was just getting really bad. I didn't want to sort of, this is January last year, didn't want to really get out of bed, didn't want to just, I found everything was really hard. And I was a real people person at the time. I was working at home, and this is pre-COVID. And working from home can be quite a lonely experience. It's better now because everyone's working at home, we're all on Teams, but pre then it was quite lonely. And I found that on your own in the house, not leaving, it's not healthy. And for me, the sort of breaking point was when I just couldn't control that anxiety, and you just had that almost panic attack. And I then decided,
physical.
Yeah.
What I'm picking up is that intensity builds, and I can resonate with what you're saying. I think a lot of people think that it's all in their head, but actually it can it can spill over into the physical realm.
Oh,
And I don't
yeah,
think people that haven't experienced it can realize how intense that could be, whether
yeah,
that be, you know, clammy hands or sweating or
yeah,
panic attacks or
yeah,
shortness of breath or tight throat. It really can come in
yeah,
different
yeah,
ways. And I wonder what that was like for you physically, when what it sounds like is a big build up to a point that was
yeah,
quite manageable.
yeah. No, definitely. And I would find that, I would get to London and exactly that. You're like sweating, and you're like, oh my goodness, it's like just and the more you worry about it, the worse it gets, and you just it is that snowball. Um,
Self-perpetuating,
and
yeah.
yeah, exactly. And it's really hard to know. Or I personally would say as well, I'm massively affected by the season changes as
Mm.
well. Summer, um, I'm a big fan of. I like the sun. I like getting out. I like, exercising. Winter, the short nights and everything. And I think we underestimate that massively, when it comes to, thinking that summer is lovely, isn't it? You've got your long evenings, you sleep less, but in the winter you've got the heating up, and it's just it's such a change. And I think, yeah, as I say, I was in sort of mid sort of January, and that sort of wanting. I think I had a holiday booked in like April. This is last year, and it's like you're working so hard towards that. You're like, there's going to be a break. There's going to be a break. And then having that anxiety attack, where it's real, you can't breathe. I just, and this is me being open and honest, because I think it's so important to talk about. It's just crying, and because you feel that you shouldn't be like that, and um and there's just no, I think it's really hard because you just think there's no way out of it. And I spoke to the doctor, he looked at medication, went on medication. But for me, I was really keen to try and avoid medication. I did go on it, but I just thought I was then starting to reevaluate as well. What else could I potentially remove out of my life in terms of trying to stop that anxiety? That's when I started as well to look a bit more into the drink side. Um, it's it naturally, most people that have a drink, they relax. I would be the opposite. I would have a drink and that would just send anxiety racing. um, and I think then people would be like, oh, you're quiet, and you then go, oh yeah, and you're trying to come out your shell again and go, make really try and sort of put on a show. And then the next day you get anxiety of, well, anxiety. And I decided just, you know cut it out. For me, it was that I drank because I liked the flavor and the taste, as I said before, not because I wanted to get drunk. And that for me was a big thing. And then I I was fortunate last year that I say fortunate, I was put on furlough. And for me, I think that it was one of the most like healing sort of moments for me, because I hadn't really stopped since that sort of time when I was 17 I talked about. I hadn't really stopped. I'd constantly been on, get a promotion, start a new job, and then to be told, right, you're at home, where the country's locked down, you don't have to go out, you you can do what I wasn't having to work. So I was going out on my bike, doing voluntary work, going shopping for people, and you just, it didn't matter what you were doing. But I think stopping and having that moment of, do you know what, let's just take a step back, was so important.
It's like it's like the health and wellness retreat the whole world needed, or the large majority of,
Mm,
and it gave that time for sort of that self introspection, to sort of
yeah,
look in rather than constantly, the world we live in, there's constantly options. There's,
yeah,
particularly in the summer, like you said, I think there's a part to play in it.
yeah.
When the sun's out and there's options, you can do a load of stuff. Being busy is pretty easy. When you're
Mm,
forced to
yeah,
stop, reflect, um, that's challenging in itself.
Yeah.
So what did the lockdown sort of teach you, and how did that
Mm,
transition into you wanting to launch this business?
yeah. So this is, so obviously what, March last year, we're locked down. Um, and it was, I'd say, that moment of going, I'd also just come out of a relationship. Um, and it was that moment of going, do you know what? I I just need to look after myself in terms of mentally, and I I was living with my brother and his girlfriend at the time, and I, I think they hated it because I'm off work whilst they're like busy working. I'm just sort of, doing my own thing, sunbathing in the garden in end of March. Um, but what I did is I made sure I just took that 2 weeks off. Where I just went. It doesn't matter that there's no pressure on what I want to do, and I will just go and, if I want to go and volunteer and do something, then I'll go and do that. Or if I want to go on my bike, and I didn't set an agenda, because I think for me, I've constantly lived that life of, having an agenda. It was quite nice just to go, doesn't matter. Um, but you can't do that forever. And I think that is, you need that sort of healing process. And then what I sort of ended up doing is sort of April, May, is set myself challenges. So I love going on my bike. So I was like, right, I want to do 1,000 kilometers each month. And every day, you get out on the bike, and you just, again, it's just a one, if you, and for anyone that cycles, it's a wonderful thing just to get out. And that was when the roads were quiet. There was no one driving. I remember going on I think it was a 50 or 60 kilometer cycle, and I saw 3 cars. Like, it was such a weird world. When you think back to lockdown number one, I think it's something that will never happen again.
Was that
Because yeah, bizarre. Like, everything about it was like, it was, we, it was almost a novelty. I mean, the novelty is now worn off. I think everyone's just bored and everything, but it was a novelty.
And you've got to remember that that first lockdown, the systems and structure weren't in place to support
Yeah.
society under a
Mm,
pandemic, or there was a bit of a straw man, but
yeah.
now there's a fairly robust
Yeah.
skeleton. And everyone was kind of looking around, weren't they, a bit unsure
Mm,
with the future, and that can
yeah.
elicit fear and make people um, reassess their
Yeah.
situation. It sounds like you had the space to realign, rethink the
Yeah.
change in, um, around that time. It sounds like you decided to drop out the alcohol, and it
Yeah.
sounds like all roads were leading you. The universe was leading you to making
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
sort of leap.
Yeah. I think so. And coming on to the reason I started Better Without, and how that came about, is, I so I've always been very sort of business minded. I mean, my mum will talk about me, getting caught at 5 years old for selling sweets in the, playground. I was always, selling on eBay at 12, and you're not your normal sort of schoolboy sort of thing. Um, but I always put that pressure on myself, um, for wanting to have a business. And I think we also have this really unhealthy, um, society where with kids, we go, oh, he's going to be a millionaire by 18 or 21 or whatever. And it everyone sort of jokes about it, but actually it really, it can grate at you, because you feel like, oh, I haven't done it. And for me, I almost always put that pressure on, going, oh, everyone's always talked about that, and then I can't even come up with a business idea. And it would grate at you, going, why can't I come up with that? And but lockdown, as you say, allows you to go, your mind's sort of free. And I wasn't even thinking of a business idea. It wasn't, that didn't even come into my head. That was not part of my sort of healing process. It was just, let's just enjoy the time off. And but it was through not having that pressure that the ideas came. and with Better Without. So I came up with the idea in July last year, and I was like, right, I've got to focus. Let's get some designs done. So 2 days later, had the designs done. Like a week later, we put it in development. It was just, I suddenly was like, this is, even if this goes nowhere, this just gives me a purpose whilst everything else is going on, still on furlough at this time. And just going, do you know what, I can just have something distracting to, put some energy and time into. And then it ended up being that, I started back at my old company, sort of part-time furlough. Obviously, restaurants were still off. And actually then the business really Better Without started to pick up, get traction, awareness with a lot of the drinks brands. And then I realized actually this is something that, one, I'm really passionate about, and also having not had a boss for whatever amount of months because I wasn't working, the thought of going back into that corporate was like, absolutely, for mental health, it just wasn't gonna be. So I quit my job and haven't looked back, and we're growing that, something that is very exciting. The sober community, or people who've done dry January or aren't drinking, or they're so supportive of each other, and I think that's what's really good. We've got people who are really supportive. We've got, we know that the trend of people not drinking is massively going up. 1 in 4 pubs pre-pandemic, people visited, and what didn't involve alcohol. That's only going to increase. The more awareness and people, we love the pub, but it doesn't have to involve going for alcohol, and that's something I'm really passionate about.
We spoke last time we spoke, didn't we, about it's about giving people options, and not just with drink, but with food. We've seen it with the vegan movement, the vegetarian. There's so much more options for people to explore, to make their own choices, to take responsibility for their lives, what they want to do. And if you can attach that to a community like the Low and No, it sounds like it's really thriving. I was looking into it, and I've got here that 8.6 million people are curious about changing their drinking habits. That's a huge percentage. Do you think there's a lot of men out there that want to change their drinking habits but are scared to? Because let's face it, there is an ingrained culture, particularly with the male community, that feel that the only way they can get through a night or go to the pub is to get smashed or have one too many. What's your thoughts on that?
It's really interesting, because I think, look, that getting drunk often is a big thing for suppressing sort of pain often as well that's going on in your life. I recall 2018, my mum went through quite a hard time mentally, and getting some devastating news. She was in hospital, and actually ended up in a priory, and really like a real shock. And I remember just drinking at home, and that was at home, but it was I almost drunk to send myself to sleep, and you just knock that away. It wasn't until you look back and you go, God, that period in my life, I was drinking a lot to escape reality as such. But I think, back to sort of your point, is that people like to drink. We get a lot out of opening a bottle of beer because it fizz, and you pour it, and that whole theatre around the drink, or you're going to a bar and a pint's being poured. Like there's a lot of theatre around that, and
it's symbolic.
It is massively, and the importance of having a beer in a pint glass, is massive. And there's so much psychology in like pint glasses, and it sounds really weird, but if you take alcohol as an example, for some random reason, if you go and get a Peroni and they serve it in some like tanky, massive or different style glass, for some reason it just naturally tastes different. I don't know what it is, but there's so much science behind it, and that's why they put so much effort into the glass. And but we really appreciate that, when someone pours a pint of Peroni and it's coming out of a tap and it's ice cold. It's again, it's that whole thing around that experience. But there's no reason why that experience can't be non-alcoholic. And I think that's where, with Clearhead and the guys at Lucky Saint, Brewdog, Big Drop Brewery, everyone's got this part to play in getting beer on draft in pubs, because that is a big step for, as you say, I think, for men to be able to go, I'm going to have a Clearhead. And it doesn't matter what it is, they have it because they like it and they enjoy it. And they'll feel better in the morning, they can go home and drive. And I genuinely think that the pub has a really important part of British culture. And it's so important for that to come back. And I think, everyone will have their own view of opening up the country too early or not open up or whatever. But actually, I massively miss socializing with people, and massively miss a pub style environment. It's that sort of escape from reality. But I find I get that regardless, now, even that I drink non-alcoholic. But I think, if you get a beer in a pint glass, it is massively symbolic, as you say. And when I go out, most places, as don't serve draft beer yet, and it will come. It won't be long. But what I tend to do is go, right, I'll have 2 bottles and I'll fill it up to a pint glass, because it just, for me, it makes me feel like I'm having that valued drink, rather than being served this little highball, glass that's sort of dirty, and then you pour in your little beer in it. It just doesn't feel, I don't want to say manly, but doesn't feel like saying I should be drinking.
There's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of psychology behind it. Like that glass shape, or even a bottle, having to pour 2 bottles, it's almost like, it's like a bit of an identity thing, isn't it? And like people will get self-conscious about, oh, I've got, a half pint. There's always that joke with lads about half is it? You're only having a half, and you get a little tumbler, and guys are, I can't have a half because that, I'll look weak. But actually, what I picked up on what you said earlier was having it on draft, having more options under the non-alcohol or low umbrella. It's about people making choices because they want to, not because they feel that they need to. And what a way to come back and transition into the pubs when this market's growing. It's and there's no kind of shame involved. And there's men feel there's a lot of shame with the choices they make, and even down to what pint they've asked for. You get and it's quite there is a lot of psychology. Like, you got the cider drinkers versus, the lager guys, and you got the kind of hipster IPA guys. They've all kind of got like stereotypes. But if we can break those walls down, give men the options, take away the kind of shame around it, I think people will allow them to be themselves a bit more. I think people will be able to open up more at the pub, and that becomes its own community. Back at the pub, maybe slightly different ways of thinking. Like, you don't have to get smashed to enjoy yourself.
I definitely, and I think that is key, is that I find I'm quite sort of out there, and I'm not putting that on, or that is just me. And regardless of, I think when I first started not drinking, my friends were really worried. They're like, oh, you'd be boring. you do get that moment where they get, highly drunk, and actually they wouldn't know what. I could probably slip away and they wouldn't even notice. But I feel I can just enjoy, being out. And as you say, I just think we are such a, especially the British culture is, we love to socialize. We love to be out. We love to be. Yeah, I think of when I was in London, and Fridays, you'd have the boozers in London, and people in the summer would be on the streets, and you just think, yeah, it is such a culture. But actually, I don't think anyone would really mind if, as soon as it's in a pint glass, you don't know what it is. And that's where I also think, some of the guys who are doing it really cleverly, they're not branding it as non-alcoholic or anything. They're just saying, this is our beer. It's a great tasting beer. It just happens to be non-alcoholic.
Like you said, if it's the taste that you're looking for, and the kind of maybe embarrassment around the glass size, and you take that away, you can be authentically yourself. For me, I still drink because I quite enjoy drinking in the right environment. I like drinking and like having a dance and being a bit silly, but I don't like taking it too far. But equally, I don't really like drinking in the week. I don't drink very often. I like the taste of it, so I'll have a clear head with my dinner. But every now and then, I might want a couple of pints in the pub. Because for me, I don't feel like it makes me overly anxious if I can control it. But the conversation we're having is that experience for alcohol is different for everybody. But I think there is this default thing of guys being like, if I have a pint that's non-alcoholic, I'm a bit of a pussy and my mates won't accept me. I won't be accepted by the group. And there's a lot of psychology behind that. And people that are going through a tough time, I mean, if I am going through a super anxious period or I've got a lot of stress, I'll choose not to drink as much or at all. But I can still go to the pub and enjoy myself. So I said it before in our episode. It's the options and creating that inclusive community where we're encouraging men to be themselves, and not have to wear so many masks that we do. And I think that it's sad because a lot of men, I feel like, they drink because they feel like they need to or should drink to be accepted. And then that can lead to a downward spiral. But what you're doing with the app, it's actually promoting that community. It's giving the men the options. And what I'd like to hear a bit more about now is, what does the app actually do and allow you to explore this growing market? I'd like to hear more about how it works.
Absolutely. So I suppose there's a few things. So as you said, you've got 8.6 million people who are what they define as sober curious, and I'm absolutely not anti-alcohol at all. I think there's time and a place. I've chosen for my own not to, but I think that's what we want to do, is have it so that people like yourselves that actually want to drink sometimes, don't want to drink all times, we love discovering new things. And I think more than ever this past year, you look at it, people have gone out and bought more stuff because they want a treat at home and whatever, and we love discovering. So the app, when you sign up, you put in your preferences. So we know not everyone likes beer, so they may like wine, they may like spirits. So what we can start to do is we can start to recommend drinks against someone's taste profile. So do they like a beer? Yes. Do they like lager? Yes. Do they like ale? No. We can start to then really go, okay, here's a new drink. Here's one you may like to try. So you can go on the app, you can filter by different drink styles. You can also filter by like food pairings. So in the alcohol world, we know that you look at back of a beer and it says goes well with a roast, or you look at a red wine, it says obviously goes well with beef. That we wanted to replicate that in the non-alcoholic world, so that people didn't feel that it was different. It was they're getting that same experience. The drinks are the same in terms of, for this often the same purpose. So then we can filter by country of origin. So we wanted to make it very exploratory. We've also got in the app, so there's lots of different drinks that, especially in the spirit sort of world, non-alcoholic spirit world, that it's not always most obvious what you do with it. So we've got drinks pairings on it. So this is a suggested, if it's seedlit, for example, seedlit pairs well with Fever Tree Tonic, and we really want to again try and educate people. I say educate, more help them out. Educate sort of sounds like they don't know what they're doing, but it's more just going, actually, you bought these products, fab, what do you do with them? So we want to make it really easy. We also tell story about how it was founded. So so many of these brands, probably 95% of them are all small. They aren't the Heineken Zeros, they aren't the Beck's Blue of the world. They are the small entrepreneurial startup or husband and wife who've decided to remortgage their home and come up with this drink. So we want to tell that story. So we do that through the app. We also show where you can buy them, so online retail. We're now building out the ability to go on the app, and when hospitality opens, you could go, right, show me a bar near me, right, or a pub, what does it serve? You can then see whether it's on draft, so is it an available on draft or not? There's a lot of people who really want to go out and try all these great beers that they've been trying at home and go and try it in a pub. I'm desperate at some time to do a non-alcoholic bar crawl. I just think it would be be amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think at least you'd remember the end. I normally only get to like 7. But yeah, so the idea being, we want to create that community, so you can go and discover new drinks. But also on the flip side, you're going out for dinner tonight, and you're going to, I don't know, Wagamama's as an example. Do they have any non-alcoholic options? Now I know they do, but most people won't, and we know they have a non-alcoholic beer. So showing that to consumers, so they know that before they get there, that there's options for them. And then we're starting to sort of add, so you can review items. So we're becoming sort of unbiased reviews, wanting to, unfortunately, the non-alcoholic sort of product world gets quite heavily slated online. I saw a great review the other day on Amazon. I think it was on Amazon. It was like, I bought this, I've tried to return it, I didn't realize it was alcohol free. I'm like, and 1 star, and you're like, but you've not reviewed the product, you've made a mistake because you've not read the item. So for me, that was quite a passion to go actually get reviews that are not about someone accidentally purchasing it wrong or anything like that, genuinely about the product. So we allow people to then see all the reviews they've had. So by date order, we want to make it almost your like journal of trying different drinks. And this is, everyone's going to interact with the app in a different way. So we've got, beer reviewers who love it and want to try every beer and review every beer. And then you've got people who just thought, oh, I want to browse. We also allow you to add drinks to your wish list. So, then you can start to go, oh, I want to try that drink, maybe not this month, next month, and you can start to keep that log. We also, with very much the reviews, being able to sort of gamify a little bit. We know people love to be the top reviewer. How can we make it so that actually in the UK they're the top reviewer? and then the final sort of bit we've got. I mean, we've got loads coming. You know, we want to do stuff like cocktail sections, so to actually give suggestions on cocktails that you can make with these different spirits. But the other bit, as I mentioned earlier, is sort of content. So, you know, we have, whether it's news or notifications, or here's a beer review of the week, you know, that's done by someone who's highly experienced in alcohol-free beer tasting. So, yeah, obviously that's someone's opinion, but we like to read content, don't we? We like to see what someone thinks about it, and for me, it's always, how can we add value? What can we do to keep people coming back to the app? And that's very much, you know, what we want to do. Now this podcast is going out in April, so be about the time we're launching. So we're UK at the moment, but we are going to be launching on the 1st of April. So probably by the time this has come out, it's out. We will be in Australia and also America.
Wow.
Which is very exciting. And it's happened a lot quicker, I'll be honest, a lot quicker than I was expecting. But the time is right. You know, I think we've got people that want it.
I think I was just going to say then exactly that. I'm aligned with the timing of this. I think people, not just men, I think human beings are generally curious about how can they improve their health? How can they explore different parts of being human? I feel that the non-alcoholic movement resonates a bit with, you know, the movement of a lot of people used to smoke and now not so many smokers. Maybe we'll see not so many drinkers. That's not to say it's right or wrong, because of you know, smoking was social, but it wasn't good for health. Binge drinking is social, but it's probably, you know, it's proven not good for your health. Everything in moderation, right? But I think with the COVID thing and just the direction we're going in as humans, I think we all want to be better than yesterday. We all want to work physically and mentally on our fitness. And a big part of Talk Club and the Talk Club community is mental fitness. We very much champion that kind of direction and phrase, because we all have mental health, yes, but we are very much in the preventative space. We're in the health, well-being, the fitness. And I wanted to ask you, when you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, what things do you put in place, tools or practices which help better your mental fitness or manage it?
Yeah. So I think it's a few things. Exercise, as in getting out on your bike or whatever, is a big one. But I'm also very aware that exercise can be very addictive as well. So you have to be quite careful with that. You know, I know from previous, you know, people I know they become so addicted to running that's it, and they don't see anything else. And actually, they're almost running away from, you know, not running away, running away from the problems, and quite literally. And so for me, exercise, talking. I mean, for me, I speak to lots of different people. I really like keeping in touch with people. I find people fascinating. You know, I find everyone's got their unique story to tell, and I also think if you are open, you know, I've always been quite open about telling my story with anxiety and everything, and it's much easier then to approach people to say, oh, I've had a bad day today, because you've already broken down that barrier. They know that. And so for me, it's keeping in touch with people, picking up the phone. And for me, actually, one of the worst things I could do if I'm having like a bad day or a dull day is to sit in front of the TV. For me personally, that I really struggle just sitting down. And I find it really hard to get into a program and then switch off. I'm much better to sort of go, right, as you say, either go into sport. And in the summer, I can play golf. Don't like doing it in the winter. I'm a bit of a fair weather golfer. But I like, for me, that's just getting out, getting away from things. I think that for me is a good way of coping. Food, I know that sounds old, but I love eating out. I mean, I'm a big foodie, and food makes you happy, and that's and it's trying to find those little things that bring a little bit of joy. And I think the biggest thing I've learned is that if I'm feeling anxious, just you more and more, you just have to run with it, and you can't try and sort of beat yourself up about it or anything, because that will just make it worse. And I don't know whether you found it before, but when I was at my worst, I remember, again, I was working at home, and I remember having to sleep in the day. Your mind is on overload, and you go, I get to lunchtime, I'd be knackered, and I just have to go, I need to switch off, because my brain is just going at a million miles an hour.
Just the body's trying to tell you something. There's a famous saying of the body keeps the score.
Yeah.
When it's tired, when it needs rest, it can come out in different physical ways. I know that when I'm anxious and stressed, I get this kind of strain behind my eyes. It's not so much tiredness, but it's kind of this sort of watery, strainy, kind of almost sort of dizzy feeling. And then that's when I know the body's a messenger. It's trying to tell me something. And I think if we can listen to our bodies more and trying to tune into what are these messages, how are we managing with our stress, and what are we doing for our mental fitness. So something else that I kind of ran this podcast a bit like we do really in the Talk Club as a check-in. We've spoke about mental fitness, and we also on our sort of checkouts talk about things that we're grateful for. So I'd extend that question to you. Like, what are you grateful for right now, or what should we as a collective be grateful for?
So for me, I think it's I'm doing something I love at the moment, and that for me is something I massively cherish, this moment of going, I enjoy what I'm doing. And I think if you can get a job, or you can find something that actually you really enjoy, doesn't feel like you're working, and I don't feel like I work. And for me, that was a big tick in the box, and that's something I'm really grateful for. I think collectively, I think there's a few things. I think we've had time to sort of take a step back, and yes, I know it's frustrating now. I think we're all sort of ready to go out and whatever, but one thing I would really say is, remember that actually how healthy that has been, taking that step back. So when we do go back out into some form of a normal life, whatever that is, actually remember that taking those days off, or just removing yourself for a few days from normal life, is healthy. And that doesn't always have to be on holidays. I think that's what we've learned more and more this year, is we all want a holiday, and normally you sort of done for a holiday, but actually taking a few days off, just painting the house or something, is a great way of distracting. So I think that's really valuable.
It's just sometimes it's the small things, isn't it? Just get those those glimpses. And I have a little journal that I write in every morning, and it can be as simple as just a hot cup of coffee, and to wake up and have set the timer on the heating, so that I'm waking up with a warm flat. Like, a lot of people don't have that, being able to pay my rent every month, and I think it's just things we all can take for granted, but actually are so important to remind ourselves what we are grateful for.
Definitely. And I think as well, without mentioning good old coronavirus, but the UK is doing well in terms of the vaccine rollout. We are getting the numbers. There is a roadmap, and it is just remembering that this will be over in some capacity soon. And I think that's where we've got to remember, actually, we could be sat here, no vaccine, and had no ending. At least we have some form of, right, we're going to have some form of normality by hopefully June. That is nice to know.
Absolutely. I mean, what a time to be alive, as they say. And life is there to be, life is worth living. And that's why we're so passionate about what we do, is trying to give men the tools and the language to express themselves, so that they don't just we don't just survive, we thrive as well. And my kind of closing question to you, or the penultimate question, is, what would you say to somebody, to a man that is struggling with their mental fitness or their anxiety, particularly during this lockdown?
So I think it's so easy to see all the TV adverts of speaking and everything, but just hearing it from people who've been there and suffered, and it's it's all right. It doesn't matter if you're feeling that way. And it's just, even if every day you could just feel a tiny bit better, then that's progress. And I think not putting pressure on yourself that you're alone or anything like that, and feel free to reach out. I mean, I'm always, literally, if anyone ever wants to reach out and drop me a message, that someone dropped me a message the other day about they're giving up alcohol and sort of journey. I'm always happy to hear and speak to people, and I think if we can all be like that, then it will make for a better place. But I think the biggest thing is, don't be afraid of it. Don't beat yourself up anymore, because that won't help. Just have to realize that actually that's how you're feeling then. And unlike a broken leg that you can see and it's in plaster and it's healing, you can't always see. It's not always, can be completely irrational. But if you have to do things, and this is for me one of the things, I used to have to go back and check the door was locked, and I would sometimes do it like 3 times. Just do it. If that's what makes you carry on your day, but you have to go back and check, just do it. And don't worry about that.
Yes, kind of trying to be kind to yourself. I'm guilty of it as well. I'm having a bad day. It's like, oh, why do I feel like this? Or how do I fix it? If I listen to a podcast, it might make me see things differently. Sometimes you just got to sit and settle with those emotions and those feelings, and not be too hard on yourself. And at the right time, speak out about them as well. It's kind of listening to your body, but also, I love the term, and I had a conversation with a friend the other day. It's like, talking is reps. Like, you kind of build momentum with talking and opening up and showing a bit of vulnerability. But on those sad and down days, sometimes just trying to be present with it and listening to the body, those messages it's trying to tell us. I think there's a lot of weight in that.
Definitely. And one very, very final thing is, it's what's works for me may not work for you. And 100%. I think that's, it's realizing that, for, like you saying, listening to podcasts, that works for some people, that doesn't for others. Doing exercise works for some people. There's no cure for it. You've got to work it out for yourself. And I think that, I say work it out for yourself, speak to others, understand, but what works for them may not work for you, and just keep trying.
Well, I feel like with our own communities, there's so much similarities, aren't there? There's no right or wrong answer, and we're here to share, explore, and with what we do is, just sharing ideas for our mental fitness, what's in our toolkit, just different self-care techniques. And I think what I'm hearing with your app is creating a community of people to explore their likes and dislikes, and
Mhm.
you know implementing you know um for example, I see it with people. Some people do like 5 days meat free and then meat on the weekend.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no right or wrong answer. I think it's not about campaigning for everyone to go sober as much
Mm.
as it is trying to say to guys, you know, any kind of advice. It's a sharing, and it's building that
Mm.
community. And I think our coming off the back of this lockdown, I think building communities and being a part of them is going to be absolute paramount to just getting back
Hmm.
to full health, both mentally and
Yeah,
physically.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, putting mental fitness, I think, ahead of physical fitness often, because it is so important. And give it that time. We spend money on gym membership, and but yet we won't even think about spending money on whether it's even getting counselling or having a therapist. It's so odd, but actually it's so worth it.
And there's so many different ways that we can go about it. Like I had this conversation with my partner, and I like writing down in my journal in the morning things I'm grateful for and kind of what's going on. And but she said she does that, but she does it just in her own mind. She'll go for a walk and
Yeah.
she'll be present and think about it. And I like getting that on paper. She likes keeping it internal, or she might
Mm.
write it on her phone in her notes with a tech. So there's no right or wrong answers here. And I think it's just be open, do what works for you. Um, and yeah, I mean, my
Yeah.
last question on the theme of mental fitness is
Mm.
going to be, what are you going to do for your mental fitness this week? What
This
have you got?
week,
Yeah,
a bit of food. Definitely. I can smell dinner cooking, which smells amazing. So food is definitely one, but yeah, get out on some exercise. I think it's you know I know as well. Last weekend I took some time off work, because it naturally running your own business, you can just be constant. Um, and actually, time away from your phone is incredibly important as well. And yeah, so I think those things combined, and it is a bit of a winning formula for me.
yeah. I've tried to implement in the past. I've fallen off the wagon a bit. Again, don't beat yourself up for not sticking to your habits or life when life gets in the way, but just having a social media free Sunday.
Mm,
I know quite
yeah,
a few people that are kind of doing that, like the whole, social free or social detox. So,
yeah,
you know, hopefully, explore. Anyone that's listening, give it a go.
yeah,
Again, it
yeah,
might work for you, it might not, but it's
yeah.
just being curious and allowing yourself to try new things for your mental
Definitely,
and physical fitness.
definitely. Yeah,
All
and
right.
and and yeah, that is absolutely it. No, for me, social can be damaging, and if it is damaging, take it out.
100%. Jonny, I think we'll wrap up there.
Oh,
Give us a checkout number. We always check in as we check out. How are you
absolutely.
feeling out of 10?
I I think an 8.5 for me. For me, it's sharing that story, and it helps.
100%. Thank you for your time. How can
Thank you.
we find out more about you, Better Without? What's
Mm,
your kind of social? We'll put them in the episode description, but just a quick
yeah.
shout out on the website and socials.
Yeah, so it's Better Without app, or betterwithout.app is our website, and then you can download the app on both Google and Android and Apple, and the App Store. So just search Better Without.
Awesome. All right. Cheers, Jonny.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. All right, take care.